for us to figure out the amount of time it takes to get good at a game, we have to establish an idea of what being good looks like. I think your idea of who is good and what is good is dependent on your perspective, and everybody's going to have a different idea. So let's use the Dunning-Kruger effect to try and figure that out. You can see here the graph is split into 4 different categories here. It's Mount Stupid, Valley of Despair, the Slope of Enlightenment, and the Plateau of Sustainability. And on the y-axis we have confidence, and on the x-axis we have competence. Now when you're a beginner, you're at your height of confidence and your height of ignorance, and this is because you don't know anything, so you have nothing to lose. The more and more you play and the further and further you fall into that valley, your idea of good starts to shift to the right of the graph. So let's say that you're in between the valley and Mount Stupid, and you think that somebody down in the valley is a good player, right? Rightfully so, because at your level and from your perspective, that player down there has gone through everything you're going through and is trying to climb out of it. Now once you're in this valley, once you're in the Valley of Despair at the bottom of this graph, I think that's when your idea of what's good, like what good players look like, starts to take shape. Because you can see how steep that curve is, the Slope of Enlightenment. You can see how steep it is to reach sustainability. And in your head, as you're climbing this slope, you have to be thinking that these players that are better than you have already climbed this. You know, they've already overcome this, they've grinded through it, and now it's your turn. And you admire those people, right? You admire those people who are able to push through and not give up. For me, being good at a game meant that you were competent, but once I became competent at a game like Street Fighter V, I realized that that's not everything, and that doesn't necessarily make you good. Understanding and knowing what to do is different from actually being able to do it in the moment. And having the courage and the will to keep playing to overcome this Slope of Enlightenment is very hard, and I admire anybody who has had the heart to do so. And even more so for content creators who are sort of documenting their journey, right? Brian F does this a lot. You know, he is a great player, but he's still, you know, reaching the height of his play, right? He's always improving, he's always making videos on his improvements, and I think it's very hard to go through all of that while on stream all the time, and go through all that while trying to document it. And that's what I'm trying to do here, but I think he's just doing it at a much higher level. Say players who are at the plateau right now are players like Sonic Fox, Punk, you know, Daigo Tokido, players who are winning over and over again and who have proved themselves time and time again. To an extent, I think every player of any fighting game falls onto this graph somewhere, and some are at the higher points and some are at the lower points, and some people are just stuck where they're at, and they either don't know how to get out, or they're okay with being there. They want to stay there and they want to keep beating up on people, sort of like gatekeeping, you know. They're gatekeeping their part of the graph. Now that we've talked about it, establish your idea of what you think is good right now. Maybe you're at the height of your confidence and you think that somebody down in the valley is good. Maybe you're in the valley and you think that people up on the slope are good, and maybe you're in the slope and you think that people that have already plateaued are good. It depends where you're at. Now that you have that idea in your head, picture where you want to be and how long you want it to take. For me, I always thought that getting good at a fighting game took around 2 years, right? That's what Eris said in a stream one time, and in a Tekken guide that I watched, he said it takes 2 years to get good at any fighting game. And as a new player, that's really daunting. That was really daunting for me. Like, you know, 2 years, that's a big commitment. And here I am about a year and a couple months later, and I understand completely what he was saying. Although I was competent at about a year and I understood mechanics and fundamentals, it takes even longer to implement that, and you still see me trying to implement that today. You can see in the gameplay we're watching here how many anti-airs I missed, how many hit confirms I dropped. It's about taking that knowledge and applying it, and that's what's going to lead to results. Everyone is going to learn at their own pace, but it's really how dedicated you are to learning and how fast you're going to be able to implement that learning. Like I said, I've been playing for about, I'd say, a year and a half now, so if you're watching my gameplays and you think that I'm good, that's, you know, that's a year and a half's worth of work. But of course you're going to go watch other streamers, bigger streamers, and higher ranked players, and those are the real people who are good, and those people who have been honing their craft for years and years and years that I'm hoping to emulate one day. So if I had to place myself on this graph in a timeline, I'd say I was on Mount Stupid for a couple months, probably 3 or 4 months, until I sort of started sloping down into the valley, which was another about 4 to 5 months, and now I'm sort of on the slope, right? I'm sort of on my way, but it's been about a year and a half, so I'd say I'm about almost halfway. I'd say almost halfway up the slope. And I'd say I would only be at the plateau when I've won a tournament and when I can continuously win tournaments, and when I feel like I can confidently enter something and know that I'm going to be in top 8. When I can look at a bracket, when I can open somebody's profile and see a rank or see a tournament placing and say to myself that I'm not the underdog. That's when I feel like I would be a good player. Anyways, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing. Maybe we can hit 2,000 before Strive comes out. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.